Okay, so Olivier, thank you again for spending some time with us here at Swiss Next China. You spent the last 10 years now in China, arriving in 2003. Obviously, a lot has changed in the meantime. You went from being an investor to an entrepreneur. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience and also what this change meant for you?
Okay, absolutely. So I came in 2003 in China. So I've been here for about 10 years, and the changes I've experienced and seen over the last 10 years has just been amazing and mind-boggling. It's been an amazing life experience. So I consider myself very fortunate to have had the chance to witness these changes. 10 years ago, China needed both capital and expertise, and specifically foreign capital and foreign expertise. So it was a very ripe moment for investments in technology, media, internet, which was my focus. Venture capital went from being 300 million invested in China in 2003 to most recently 2011, 6 billion. So it grew by a factor of 20. And you've seen, I would say, two key changes. The first one is increasingly the investments, source of investments no longer came just from foreign companies, foreign investors, but now actually a lot of Chinese investors are investing themselves in China. So they realize that they don't necessarily need any more the foreign capital. China has generated so much foreign reserve and has created so much wealth that this money generated in China is invested itself back into the system. So you see that I think it's become a little bit harder for foreign investor to break into the Chinese market because one, they need less capital, and two, they've developed themselves expertise. So I had a very successful run doing investments from 2003 to 2007, and at that time I realized there was so much money that has been raised in venture capital. It was probably a very good opportunity to jump on the other side and become an entrepreneur myself and raise money. So which we did. We actually raised money from Chinese investors because we wanted to be closer to our shareholders. We believe that they understand the market better, they could help us locally, and it's been a great partnership. So I think you see this evolution happening more and more, which is now Chinese companies, and my experience also as well is I realized working for foreign companies in now that what is becoming the biggest market in the world, China, there is no really need to always have to go back and report to someone that's based overseas. And I think Chinese companies increasingly say we don't really need that headquarter overhead. So we had the opportunity to start a new company, which is a true Chinese company, but it's a Chinese international company. We have headquarters in Beijing. We are half founders from Europe, foreigners, and half Chinese, and we're really building a new breed, the next generation of companies, which is Chinese company with an international perspective. And I think the next big opportunity is going to be not foreign money coming into China, but Chinese company and even Chinese capital going overseas. And that's the trend that now we're riding and we're benefiting from, and it's actually very exciting.
Excellent. Let's maybe come back for just 1 minute on your experience as an investor. So you came here from a very traditional Silicon Valley-based company, and you started looking for technology investments. What did you find when you came here, and what were some of the lessons you also kind of drew from your experience?
Yes, right. So my goal my mission when I first came here was the typical, very successful high-tech California company, which was Qualcomm, the world leader in wireless semiconductor, today the largest semiconductor company in the world. We were looking for fundamental technologies, technology innovation that we would find in China that we could actually incorporate in our product and we can help to grow the markets. And I was specifically looking for this type of companies which we had invested in the US successfully, and realized it was a little bit of a disappointment. There was not that many technology innovation. So I think the common sense, and very often people think China is all about copying, there's no real innovation, and I think that's probably wrong. You just have to look for innovation in a different place, not in technology, but actually in business model innovation. And there's sort of the joke of people talking about B2B, so business, a lot of internet businesses are either B2B, business to business, B2C, business to consumer, and China is all about C2C, which is copy to China. So there's indeed a lot of people, Chinese people are very quick to adapt foreign concept and technology, but what I think is the successful formula is to take ideas that have worked successfully overseas and adapt them to the Chinese market. And in this adaptation process, you see a lot of innovation. There's a few examples of this. Probably the most interesting one, which has been the online video game, which is a huge industry. It's 1.5 times the size of the movie entertainment industry. And until probably 5 or 10 years ago, this business did not exist in China. And China realized that there was a way to really make this business successful. They had to completely change the way the business was done and created the concept of online game, massively multiplayer online game, where people had to pay a subscription. So it's a business model innovation because you have to connect to a server, and to connect to a server, you have to pay. And so that's the first innovation that China came up with, business model. And then the second one was the free-to-play for virtual items. So in other words, all the games are free, and then you pay for, if you want to upgrade your character, buy more goods. This business concept has actually first was started and invented in China and has been very successfully exported all over the world. So it's sort of paradoxically, you come to China thinking that it's all going to be about copying items, but then you find some really interesting innovation. Again, not technology innovation, sometimes business model innovation. And in the case of the online video game industry, the whole video game industry had been transformed by this business model. And now if you look all over the world, this is the dominant way that companies actually make money. And this was pioneered in China. So again, very interestingly, little technology, pure technology innovation in China. I think it's still too early. The opportunity cost of capital is too high to invest in technology and be patient to wait for R&D labs to produce results. But a lot of innovation just in different sectors. And again, business model adaptation to China.
So you told us quite a bit about investment and the kind of, I would say, venture capital side of the story. You just told us about some ideas. What can you tell about the people and the entrepreneurship in China?
So in my experience, and I was fortunate in my career previously to be active in the investment and startup scene in the US, in China, in Japan, Korea, India, and in the US and Europe, which are the major markets. And from my experience, China has the best talent in terms of entrepreneurship. And people are extremely entrepreneurial in China. I think it's really ingrained in the culture. If you look overseas, very often the Chinese, Southeast Asia, very often the Chinese people dominate sometime the business environment. They're just very entrepreneurial. They start businesses, they work hard. And I think this creates a very exciting environment for China in terms of investments. It also means that it's very competitive because as soon as you're successful, people will, one, copy or try to emulate what you've done. And then second, very often the people who you've hired, once you taught them, they likely will sometimes leave to start their own company. I think that's the rule of the game, and that's another reason why you have to be even more innovative in China is to basically fight this very intense competition. But it also means that the Chinese company are much more effective, and very often really the competition, when they go overseas, then they're really ready to compete. However, I think the biggest challenge, and this is an opportunity for foreign companies and foreign talents coming to China, is now we're at the time where Chinese company needs to go overseas and invest a lot more overseas. And I think they need a lot of help because it's still, even though they have learned how to compete in the Chinese market, it's still very different the way you do business in the West. And I think they definitely need help in doing that. And I think that's an opportunity for a lot of foreign talent that's come to China, is to help them with that transition.